Hello and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is the show where I get to talk about sports, I get to talk about business, and I get to talk about everything in between. Today, my incredible guest, I have Michael Luscher. He's the CEO of POINT3, spent some time with the MLB, spent some time with the NFL. Most importantly, he's a Mets fan like myself. Michael, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm great. As you said, wish we had done a little bit better coming off the weekend, but bullish on the growth of Lindor and what lies ahead,
Yes.
which us Met fans have not been able to say for a long time.
No, we have not. So I'm excited. I went into this season just being like, wow, so this is what like normal teams feel like. It's kind of cool when your owners are capable. Let's just use that word. But we don't need to talk too much about the Mets because we could lament all day. There's really no point in doing that. Misery. What does misery love, Michael? Misery loves
Jets
company. Touche. I'm a Giants fan, so at least have a little bit of happiness. I had a little bit of happiness in my life at one point. But most importantly, again, I get to talk to you today, CEO of POINT3, a performance apparel brand. Very excited. We kind of went over it a little bit beforehand, but excited for you to tell me it again. But the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Man, what a great question. I was fortunate enough at a young age, like probably so many of your listeners and you, like we work hard. We spend a lot of our waking hours doing whatever it is that you do to make a living. And when I came up with the idea, when I thought about how much time we spent, I couldn't imagine doing anything other than working in the sports business. It's all I've done after my wife and children, basketball, mostly basketball, but sports in general has certainly been, it's what we do. I don't know how else to say it other than it's what we do. It provides community, it provides bonding, it provides fitness, competition, all the things that make life worth living.
Many things you learn in sports, you really don't get the opportunity to learn them anywhere else. And I agree with all that, right? Competition, learning, discipline, hard work, time, time management, all those things you can learn through sports. And I think it's also fun, right? Like that's the other aspect of it. So few people talk about how enjoyable it is to just like play basketball with your friends on the weekend, right? It's just something fun to do. And then you get all those other things that are included on top of it, which is fun, which is always nice as well. So yeah, very, very excited again to have you here, talk a little bit about the business side. We're going to obviously kind of go in and out of the business and the sports and kind of hit that Venn diagram in the middle as much as we can. And I do want to learn a little bit more. I mean, it was a few years ago now, but you spent some time with the MLB and the NFL. And as I told you, one of the most important questions I like to get across when I have incredible people like yourself on the show is, how did you break into the sports industry? Right now, this is a little different time, right? Things are different now in 2021 than they were in early 2000s, obviously with technology and everything that's happened. But I guess like how did you view it? As you said, if there's something you were going to put 60 to 80 hours a week into doing, it's going to be sports. And I made that exact same decision after hating my first job. I said, I'm never going to not work in sports. I'd rather hate my job in sports because then there's something redeemable. If I just hate my job, there's nothing redeemable at it. I don't care what the paycheck is. So tell me a little bit, how did you get into and what was the idea behind, especially back when you were kind of figuring out the job landscape, getting into the sports industry? Why, how, and when you did that?
Well, to all the young heads, the young bucks and up and comers, I can tell you that I had the benefit of just being an early adopter. I went to Ithaca College.
Beautiful.
I started there in 1993, and I went there for two reasons. Number one, I thought I could play D3 hoops. Number two, at the time, it was one of like 5 undergraduate sport management programs in the country. Wow. The answer to question one is I was not good enough to play Division III basketball.
Worth a shot, though.
But yeah, I played for a season, and the idea of this college is too fun to play JV basketball. But I did walk away with a degree in sport management, and that was, that in and of itself was why I went there. I started at the time, man, this is going back a lot of years. The NBA used to come to the Ithaca College campus to recruit interns. And I'll never forget they had 2 HR people that schlepped up to Ithaca, and I got an internship first with the NBA in that would have been fall of '95. And for those of you that follow NBA history, that was when they were in the midst of a lockout. So I had to scramble. I hadn't registered for classes, and my advisor got me placed at Major League Baseball working in the PR department the season after their strike, which was a fascinating time to be doing PR for Major League Baseball.
Oh,
And my
goodness,
job,
yeah.
which is now makes me sound so old, it's totally obsolete. I used to get a knee-high stack of newspapers that would land on my desk at 7 a.m. every day. And I had to physically cut out every article about Major League Baseball, tape it to a piece of legal paper, and run off copies for every executive in the office, which of course literally doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Those are just
So
screenshots and emails now. That's
that's
a
exactly
lot
right.
easier, a
So,
lot less waste of paper too, which is kind of
oh
nice.
God, I used to wrestle that copy machine. I said some very regrettable things to that nice piece of hardware. So I was fortunate enough after college to have a chance. I got a job offer, and I worked in the international department of Major League Baseball again at a really exciting time. It was right when, so it was 97, 98, and it was right when the prevalence of international players started spiking. And the business area that I focused on was Asia. And those were the early days of Chan Ho Park
Hmm.
and Hideo Nomo, and I was very fortunate I was selling sponsorship and doing marketing in Japan in 2001 when Ichiro won the Rookie of the Year and MVP, and my job was basically to fly over to Japan and collect checks. It was
Oh,
awesome.
at that point, especially, yeah.
Yeah,
They still, speaking of, anytime there's a very prevalent, Japanese or Chinese player, and really any of these major leagues, like those companies just want to hand over money, and it's because they're such huge superstars, right? Like looking at Hideki Matsuyama just won the Masters, and they were talking about, how much money this guy's going to make for the rest of his life, just
yeah,
knowing he's the first Japanese-born player to win the Masters, right? So it's so cool. And when you got to do that was like the beginning, right? Like, that must have been
yeah.
such a cool experience too. As you said, it was kind of fun to just go collect checks, but what did you learn from that experience that you're probably not going to learn anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously joking. It was a lot of work, and
Of
and
course,
what
yeah.
we loved at the time was the international group. It was kind of like a startup within a bigger company. We were sort of the renegade, like, I mean, spending 10 to 12 days a month on the road in a slow month. We were. It was the first time that Major League Baseball ever held regular season games overseas. So got to be part of this sort of team that just, like I said, now that I run my own business and I am the founder, I learned so many great lessons about just get her done. Like it's when you look under the hood, it's rarely pretty. And if it is, maybe the business isn't growing fast
Hmm.
enough or not pushing itself. So just these incredible stories of whatever it takes to get the event produced, make sure that the sponsors are happy, get the broadcast done right. That was what we did for the first 6 years of my career. So it was an incredible experience. It was led by, I mean, guys and girls that I'm still friends with today. It's such a wonderful, spongy time in an executive's career that those first 5 years out, you're just taking everything in, and you can grind and you can work 80, 90. You have the legs to work that much. So I remember those days really fondly, and a lot of the lessons that I, both to the young cats that are here in my office now, and in terms of how I run this business, I think I learned a lot in those first 4 or 5 years of being in the professional workspace.
Yeah, that must have just been such an interesting time, as you said, just the opportunity to really kind of be at the forefront of a lot of that stuff, right? As you said, Hideo Nomo, Ichiro, like some of the biggest stars around the world were here, and you got to
Yeah,
kind of, I guess, did you like maybe even like create that template kind of, right? Like you were the first guy, you and your team were kind of the first people to take this head on, and you kind of built that foundation to see what it is now, and all the incredible players that have come since. And you also spent a little bit of time at the NFL as an executive as well. What were you doing there? And I guess what was that transition like, going from Major League Baseball, kind of old boys club, like all this kind of like stuck in the Stone Age still, and it's 2021, going to the NFL where all they do is print money there as well.
yeah. I took the opportunity. I mean, I'd started at Major League Baseball as an intern in '95, and so it's often hard to shake. I was still the kid that used to bring the clips around, and here
Yep.
I am, 28, 29. I've got a $30 million revenue budget that I've got to hit, and I'm still like, oh, that's the kid that used to deliver the
Hmm.
things I would read in the bathroom, whatever. So part of it was just I think I'd plateaued, but the other thing was in 2002 when I switched over to the NFL, it was really coming of age both as a business, but mostly as a media property. And I had a chance to go work on the media business at the NFL. So I was taking my experience in Asia, my contact network, and selling media rights to international broadcasters, primarily in Asia, for NFL games. So for anyone that would have watched a Super Bowl when they were overseas, my department would have done the broadcast deal with that local television network. So, probably the landmark deal that we did when I was there was we got the Super Bowl. In fact, it was the Super Bowl from Houston, the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction.
Oh, yes, that one.
We got that broadcast live on nationally on CCTV, which is the government-owned broadcaster. So just, again, a tremendous experience and a chance to experience new cultures and be part of this, enterprise, this beast of a business. And you're right, going from Major League Baseball, but where it's very much an old boys network and love of the game and baseball lifers, to the NFL, where like there were as many Goldman execs there as there were guys that had played football. So it was for me, it was a really nice rounding out of the experience. Again, learned a ton. And yeah, I mean, it was a very, and the NFL, same thing, had just started exploring the international series and all the amazing games they've done in London and in other markets. So it was a great time to be there, albeit with a very different rationale, right? There aren't hardly any NFL players from overseas. So you're not taking that same strategy of, I love this guy because I wear the flag on my chest. It's more about kind of the curiosity of what this game is and how big these guys are and how hard they hit and the strategy. So it was a different value prop that we were selling to the consumer. And that was also a lot of fun.
And now, the NFL's cutting checks for people are cutting checks to the NFL for $100 billion. I'm sure a little piece of you probably wishes you were a part of that deal too, but there's no point in digressing. You're doing some cool stuff now. So I have to understand a little bit there. I think there was a little bit of time in between from your stop at the NFL to what you're doing now at POINT3, but walk me through that. You go from the MLB as an intern doing then you're working with international players and rights, then you're working with international players and rights at the NFL, and now again, there's something in between, but now you're making performance apparel. So how the heck does that all happen? Right?
Yeah. So just the quick trajectory was that I met my wife and we knew we were going to leave Brooklyn where we were living and move down to Atlanta, which is where we live now. So we took an opportunity to take 6 months, and I worked for a legend in the business, Rick Burton, who's a professor of sports marketing now at Syracuse University. At that time, he was the commissioner of the National Basketball League of Australia. And his charter was to grow the footprint and reach of the NBL of Australia throughout Asia, which was exactly what I had done for the NFL.
Yep.
So I moved to Sydney to work with Rick about growing Australian basketball. And we opened a team in Singapore, the Singapore Slingers, and we did a couple rights deals in the Philippines, but mostly it was a chance to live in Australia.
How often do you get that chance, right? If for 6 months, you might as well take it, right?
It was amazing. It was a fabulous time. We didn't have kids yet, surfed a lot. It was fantastic. Moved to Atlanta and got involved in a software startup called Blue Sombrero, which the core business is online registration for youth sports events, really with a focus on soccer. And we built that business up from, I was the third managing partner, fourth employee. So I joined the two co-founders to get it started. And over the course of 3.5 years, built it up to about 25 employees, and we sold it to Dick's Sporting Goods. You can imagine why Dick's wants to interject themselves into mom, dad registers kid for soccer. How about you buy some cleats, some shin guards, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. So that I left that business in 2009. That transaction closed in 2011, but it gave me a chance to take a pause, think about what I wanted to do. And the transition to garments, it's funny. I come from knitters on both sides of my family. So many Jews out there. We're all from the Shmata business. My mom was in fashion design for over 30 years, and the origin of POINT3 was truly organic. It was birthed on a basketball court. When I exited my last business, I started getting back into shape, playing a lot of hoop, 2-3 hours a day in a hot gym, summer of 2009. And I would sweat so much, I'd wear sleeveless tops. My hands would become saturated with moisture. And again, I'm figuring out, what do I want to do? My second daughter's born. My head's in a whirlwind. But being on the basketball court, to your point earlier about sports, it grounds you. It just gives peace in so many ways, for me at least. And so I'd play really hard and get a sweat. I would sweat so much that my hands would become saturated with moisture to the point where I couldn't control the ball. So I started stealing my wife's kitchen towels. She went to culinary school, so we have like a whole assortment of what chefs would use, and I'd hang it over my waistband like a quarterback does in football, so I could dry my hands off without leaving the court. My now business partner made a joke and said, "You can get some safety pins, pin that towel to the side of your shorts." And we were like, "Shit." I don't know if I can curse. Sorry. Dang.
You did it. I'm not going to say anything about it.
There we go. That's a really good idea. So we filed for a patent in 2009, and that patent was granted in 2014. And it basically describes a towel built into your shorts, an absorbent exterior built into a moisture wicking garment. So I didn't start the business because I don't like working for other people or I had this itch. It was this idea that wouldn't leave my head. And the thought of not pursuing it would have been, and all you talk about regrets on the other side of the path not taken, this would have been, even worse. So raised some money, had some really good people get behind us early, and we got after it. And now 10, almost 11 years later, we've built a basketball brand called POINT3 that's wrapped around this really valuable piece of intellectual property. And we've built a really strong basketball business rooted in grassroots team uniforms and direct to consumer. We license our technology out to other apparel brands. Mm-hmm. So you'll start seeing it in apparel for racket sports, CrossFit, and training. And we've extended the brand in this pandemic year into gaming. So we now make a line of performance gaming apparel, because you can imagine why, if you're an avid gamer, you're trying to become a professional gamer or a streamer, sweaty hands can become a real
mm-hmm.
issue.
We've
known this. We've done a ton of market research, and there's really very few really quality options in the apparel space for gamers. So we rolled out a line of performance gaming apparel. We beta tested it last summer, rolled it out in November of 20. Huge success, rocket ship of growth. Have a couple really fun deals that we'll be announcing over the next few months. But it's taken a life of its own. It's re-energized me and my team, which everyone in my office is, 20-something basketball heads. They're all gamers, and so it's been really fun to just approach this from a totally different angle. And the consumer's the same, right? You pick 100 hoopers aged 11 to 18, 99 of them are gamers as well. So we know where the consumer lives. We know how to talk to them. We know how to reach them. We know what they like. And so it's a pretty relatively easy leap from, we make this brand that you trust that makes great performance basketball apparel with this really cool technology. Well, now it works, and we poured it over into gaming. And that's been a really fun exercise, a heady one and a lot of work, but it's been a fun one that is now beginning to bear some real fruit.
Yeah. And I think, again, something I always love to talk about is, staying positive and being positive and turning a negative, the pandemic, into something positive if and when possible. And it's very clear that you guys and girls were able to do that and turn it into something that could be absolutely gigantic. Because, I'm not a gamer by any means, right? But I played enough video games in my life, and I get clammy hands. It's as easy as it is. And what do? You just wipe them off on your pants, and you kind of just go back to it. And if there's an actual piece of apparel that does that better than the rest, let's take advantage of it, right? So yeah. I guess I kind of want to go back to the beginning of the story a little bit before we kind of get into some of the intricacies here. What is, okay, so it went from a kitchen towel on your waistband. How do you even start that process of saying, well, I want to do this. Okay. What the hell do you do from there? What are those steps? I feel like you kind of can just kind of throw a bunch of stuff in a bunch of directions and see what sticks. How did you guys then go about actually creating the product itself?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it was a lot of work. So I had the fortune of coming from both sides of my family, as I mentioned, were knitters, and my mom spent 30 plus years in fashion design. So I knew enough to be dangerous, and I knew where to go to get the right questions answered.
Okay, there you go.
This was 2009, 2010. So we were very fortunate. I was at a trade show and met a fabric mill that had the right type of fabric that we were able to test and develop. And the group that owns the mill, turns out I had a personal connection with, and they were one of our early stage investors. So they, anytime you start something, right, there's a crash course in knowledge. You're reading books, you're looking up stuff on the internet. And really, there's going to be a couple people that you look back on and you were like, I don't know what I would have done if that person didn't believe, right? When you start something from an idea, you're constantly selling, right? Like, and so I may be talking to a vendor who's going to make my stuff. So I'll be their customer, but they need to believe in what we're going to do, or else why would they take the risk on working with us? Starting something, especially in the apparel space, all of the expense, the profit goes away on the front end development. You make it back if you start turning and burning a ton of units. So we were very fortunate to get paired up with some really, really bright people that kind of gave me a crash course on how to do things in the apparel world. A lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes made, but it led to what is now, a very healthy business where we outfit over 2,000 basketball teams that hit the court every year. We're official partners with the New York Knicks, Brooklyn Nets, Atlanta Hawks for all their youth programs. And there's just a lot of hoopers out there wearing our gear, rocking our backpacks, and now gamers doing it as well. So the work paid off.
And so with that, when you were able to kind of figure out the perfect blend and get the fabric right and get everything right, how, as you said, you kind of went the grassroots way of marketing it, trying to get it into, young kids' hands. Why did you go that route versus maybe some of the others you could have went, especially, early 2010s? That's like social media, like galore. That's where anyone could put something up on Facebook and they'd be like, yeah, sure. 8,000 million people can look at that. Like why was it the grassroots marketing? And obviously it's paid off, but I'm curious how you guys went about that and why.
Two reasons. Again, good question. Number
Thanks.
one, it's when we got out the gates, it was as much market research as it was marketing, right? Like the first 3 years, it was me and 2 employees out at tournaments, sweating with we talk about point of sweat marketing, right? If we can't be out there on the court with these kids and these people that love the game, then we're not doing it for the right reason. So a lot of it was staying true and authentic to the mission, which was, prior to extending into other sports, was always to be the brand for basketball players, to be the brand that embodies this love of the game that anybody that's connected to basketball knows and understands. So I think that was first. It was really to understand that grassroots space that we kind of knew and could authentically play in, but really get dirty with it. The second is that, there's really 2 brands that dominate the space. There's really one brand that dominates the space.
Yeah.
And it's the swoosh, and they make things.
I should have gotten a shirt beforehand. My bad. My bad. Look, it's actually covered up. Look, perfect. Can't even see it.
That's we're accustomed to it. There's been we've had a long history with those guys, and you can't operate in this space and not butt heads and come up against them. If you want to take market share, you gotta be ready to not get bullied. So I think finding the pockets that probably wouldn't be meaningful to a Nike or Adidas, but for us was a meaningful piece of business and a way to connect with the consumer. So when we launched, our first line was picked up at Modell's. We were carried in 20 stores in the New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia markets. We built a huge, it was spring, summer of 11. And we built an extensive grassroots marketing campaign. We worked with a bunch of street ballers. And it sold well, but we couldn't make any money because we didn't have scale. So we realized quickly that, yes, could we sell it into wholesale? Sure. Could wholesale get good sell-through? Sure. That deck is stacked in favor of the big boys. So when we would go out to tournaments after that, we'd sell hand-to-hand combat, right? Hey, you ever heard of this? What happens when your hands get sweaty? I wipe them here. Try these shorts. Boom, short sale. Like, it was 1 for 1. And we started getting coaches coming up to us being like, that's a dope idea. Like, do you guys make uniforms? And we're like, shit, yes. Yeah, sure, we make uniforms.
Of course we make uniforms.
We take some uniforms. We take them to the cut and sew. They tear them up. We put the material in there. We probably extended the reach of our patent beyond what the USPTO would have allowed us to do. But we went where the business was, like any good entrepreneur would. And now that's become our largest gross volume driver. And we have exclusive partnerships with the 4 largest grassroots event operators. So like this past weekend, we had teams at 3 different events in 3 different states. We reached 1,000 youth basketball teams. And we're selling POINT3 merchandise. we're selling the official event merchandise, and we have a deal with Overtime, with the media company, where we're selling their gear on site as well. But we're still hand-to-hand combat, grassroots. It's what we're about. And it's what we'll do as we extend into gaming as well. We want to stay authentic to that consumer.
Yeah, I think that is, I mean, that's what you have to do, right? You don't see Nike and Adidas. You don't really see them doing that kind of stuff unless it's at those just major events. But obviously, they're going to have to be there. And then you also said that you're working with some NBA teams, and you said the Knicks, the Nets, and I apologize, I forget, is the Hawks the third one?
We had been with the Hawks for 6 years doing their junior NBA program. So for the kids that'll be playing Knicks summer camp, they'll be wearing Knicks branded .3 gear. And same thing, right? I think Under Armour just backed out, but Nike has the on-court rights. I think Under Armour used to have junior NBA rights, but on a team-by-team basis, they have these extensive outreach programs into the community with youth basketball entities. And again, that for us, that's where we live. And so, does Adidas or Nike care to outfit 40 different YMCAs in one area that each has a different logo and a different numbering scheme? That's not their business, but that's what we do. So that's been a fun one for us to get our hands dirty on.
And so you were talking about before, like getting to scale. Now, this doesn't really, one-to-one is not scale. That's the total opposite of scale, right? So how do you get is it more of a branding play? Like, do you have some ideas down the line? Because at some point you have to scale, because that's how you're going to make money, as you well know, as most people well know. So you don't have to give us the whole roadmap into the playbook, but again, just going one-to-one, you're never going to scale. It's almost impossible. How are you going to get to that point?
So we had a really breakthrough 2018 where we had figured out the model on how to sell to teams. Q3 of 18, we did a deal with Baron Davis, former NBA All-Star, very active.
Such a great guy.
He's
such a nice guy.
He's a creative visionary and a genius. And the idea that we worked on with Baron was, can we leverage all of these teams that are wearing our gear and all these tournaments where we're the exclusive and only apparel partner out there as a way to drive direct-to-consumer adoption of the brand? So if there's 150,000 kids that are wearing .3 uniforms, we sell direct to those coaches so we can get to those kids. When we're out interacting at these tournaments, we're reaching 250,000 kids from March through until August. And these are our people interacting directly with players and coaches. Can we find a way to incentivize them to come to our site and have .3 be their chosen basketball apparel brand? So we spent all of 2019 in a beta test figuring that out. And we had some incredible stats of the 10,000 transactions we did in the late part of, and this is at event retail, 16% of them that had never heard of .3 and didn't even buy a .3 item would end up coming to our site and made a purchase around holiday. So we found a net profitable, super effective customer acquisition tool that allows us to maintain our core business, which is grassroots team uniform sales, but uses that as a lever to drive people to try .3 and become loyalists of the brand. And it's been hugely successful. Obviously, 2020 put a pretty big dent in that. But that was heading out of 18 into 19. That was the whole purpose of the year, was to drive our direct-to-consumer business. And 19 was awesome. We like so many businesses, we had a great year. We were heading for, we figured this bad boy out, better mousetrap in 2020. So, but now we're back at it. Basketball is back. We're back at it, tournaments. We got a ton of teams wearing our gear. So, and now we've got this gaming bolt on, which is really exciting.
And we're going to get to the gaming, I promise you that. But I would not be doing my job if I didn't ask, at least, what are you doing on the user acquisition side that's so successful?
So a couple things. We are now, like so many brands, we had a great run with social media. Man, it was a great run. And now the space
those are the days, right?
And the privacy notifications, everything, have made it really challenging. So what we probably, I would say, if I could go back in time, we were so focused on customer acquisition and it was very transactional that we probably missed some of the storytelling and all the less the science and more the art of what does this brand mean? What do you feel like when you see .3? And so now our focus is, we're doing a lot of content. We are connecting directly with our consumer. We are like I said, by the time the summer's over, we will have had our traveling pop-up retail booth at 50 different youth basketball tournaments all across the country. So still very much hand-to-hand combat, and we love it. And this is what my whole team is about. And so, but now what we're doing is, right, if you were at the Bob Gibbons Tournament of Champions in Suwanee, Georgia this weekend, and you wanted to pick up the official Bob Gibbons hoodie, you buy that from us. We are Hoop Scene that puts on that event. We're their exclusive retail partner. So you may go to that event. You might want to buy the official event hoodie. You might want to buy a POINT3 backpack. You might want to buy an overtime t-shirt. We are working with that customer. And so I think that for us has been a really great way to learn. And I think there's more opportunity for scale with that. I think that's between the brand storytelling, like we said, we're watching the world move pretty fast. So, but being on the court it's what we're about. It's what drives us, and it's something that we'll always do.
I love that, man. And yeah, over time, if they were not just bought out, they were valued at a pretty high number. I can't remember the exact story there. So you're working with some good people, which I think is really cool. And as you brought up a couple times, as I even said before, the gaming space, now really getting into that. I was told about this partnership, so I think I can say it. The Johnson C. Smith University esports team, they're an HBCU that you guys have partnered with for the team and what they're doing. And so I guess, you kind of talked about it before. The pandemic bred this idea and this opportunity. And now, as you were talking, I mean, this could potentially end up being bigger than your basketball business at one point in time, right? So talk to me a little bit about why you really like this esports space. And you talked about it a little bit before, kind of the demographic is it's mostly just two circles lapped over each other, right? That's not even a Venn diagram at that point. But talk to me about this space and why you're so bullish on esports, particularly again with performance apparel, which, if you talk to my parents or you pick someone off the street, they're probably not going to be like, yeah, of course those esports kids needs performance apparel, right?
Yeah. I think it's been a bit of a leap for us to look at, if you think about what's an athlete, right? And I think some of the hardcore guys and girls of my generation, an athlete is someone that's dedicated to their craft. They practice it to become the best that they can be. And whether that involves, quick twitch motions of, first person shooter games or, being strong enough to break through an O-line, at the line of scrimmage and gain 5 yards. We can debate this one for days, but
yes,
we've made the argument, so there's a story that's probably best illustrative of this. So pandemic hits, we had a great 19. We take a big swing on some inventory, and 2 containers of goods arrived from China onto my warehouse the first week of March.
Fantastic. Perfect time.
The world shuts down the second week of March. So we have our oh shit moment, obviously, like so many businesses did. We decided we're going to dig our heels in and figure this thing out. And gaming was the natural, where are we going to test? How are we going to use our time? So we had a whole cadre of interns, and we sent kits out to influencers of our basketball shorts, and we were like, we think these can be gamer shorts. What do you think? And we got a call into the office from a kid who was his gamer tag is Mama I'm Dat Man. He was the MVP of the 2019 NBA 2K League.
Nice.
And he literally called the office. He's like, what the hell are these shorts? It's all I want to play in. My whole team wants him. So he was the captain of Blazers Gaming, and just a natural born endorser and a great kid. So we had a couple really good strokes of luck. So my CMO is negotiating with his name is Nidal, great dude. And so we're trying to get him on the phone, and Josh calls him, and he's like, hey man, I only got a few minutes. I got to go get some shots up. And he kind of pauses, and he's like, wait, do you mean like really? He's like, no, I'm playing video games. But it's that same idea of if I had practice, I got to go early and get shots up. And that for us was a bit of a eureka moment where it was like, dang, this is his craft. He's honing this craft. He wants to be a professional gamer. And so just like I would go out when thought I was going to make the Ithaca College basketball team and just get shots up or, practice what I was doing, same thing. And if we can provide you with some gear that's going to help you perform at your peak, well, isn't that performance apparel, right? So the stories at the time, there was no sports on. The 2K League was being broadcast on ESPN on the Deuce.
Was the first time I ever downloaded. I downloaded Twitch that week.
There you go.
I was like, I need to watch anything at this point.
Yeah.
I'll watch people play video games. Now I kind of like it. I mean, again, it's just the best people in the world doing their thing. It's fun. You always want to watch high competition. Yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. Makes sense.
So the story got picked up on ESPN.com about what was at the time the first ever player endorsement deal in the history of the NBA 2K League. And we treated it like a sneaker collab, right? So just like, Kyrie or Paul George has their signature shoe, we made him signature shorts. And we released a line that had his Datman logo, helped him create a logo. And we built the Datman brand for him. And he went out like 2 days after the announcement. And he was through 3 quarters. He had scored 77 points against Wizards Gaming, pacing for the all-time record. And Wizards Gaming, for almost the entirety of the fourth quarter, did a 4 corners just to keep him from getting the record. And my man went on his Twitter account and just started talking shit. And he was like, "You can't hang with me. You need these shorts if you want to hang with me." And we sold a ton of shorts.
Yep. Oh, I love it.
So we're like, all right, product market fit, check.
It worked.
Yeah. And then we went on and we did a couple smaller deals. There's a local team here in Atlanta called Ghost Gaming. We did a collab with those guys. But the most fun, we know that sweaty hands is an issue for gamers, 1. We've confirmed product market fit, 2. So now the work starts, which is talk to as many gamers as we can. We've done, 1,500 individual interviews with gamers and basketball players to understand their habits and what they think about the apparel market and what their buying habits are. And so, okay, where does this consumer live? Can we reach them? And then maybe most importantly, does the POINT3 brand translate? And so POINT3, which we're dropping a t-shirt, I think tomorrow or the day after, we should do a better job of telling our brand story, which is 0.3 seconds, the shortest amount of time to get a shot off in a basketball game. Well, football's a game of inches, basketball's a game of tenths of seconds. This is elemental to gaming. And so we know that we're addressing a problem. We know where the consumer is, and the brand translates. So we're like, all right, we're on to something here. Then we had an all staff meeting. This was the most fun meeting probably all 2020. And we always nerd out on product. And we're like, all right, we know we make great, like specialized performance basketball apparel. You guys are all gamers. What do you wish you had? And it was like you could hear the synapses connecting. It was like, and so we've actually got product and development now that we started thinking about in May of last year of what addresses not just a need for sweaty hands, but, things like movement. We studied how people sat when they gamed and we talked to people about where their pain points were and what they wish they had. And then the staff got to work. And that's the fun part for us is like, how can we make gear that addresses these issues? So we released the first drops in November. In March, we did a really exciting collaboration with an esports team called Evil Geniuses, which is probably one of the oldest and most storied esports franchises around. They've been here since '99. And we did a collab with those guys that's still live now for some Evil Genius branded gear that their players are outfitting. We'll have another announcement in about 2 weeks with another major team that's on the LCS circuit. And then the Johnson C. Smith thing, which our friends at Next Up brought to us, was amazing. And that was, sometimes these deals are just because you get to talk to someone and you're like, God, I love your passion. Their advisor, Dr. Bernadette Lawson Cummings, sorry if I'm not getting her name right, and the captain of the team were just like so captivating. And this tiny little 1,400 student school is just like, we are balling out. Like they're like, I think there's, I don't know how many HBCUs have esports programs. I think it's over 20, but like Call of Duty, these guys are like they are it. They have it on lock and they are so hyped about it. So when we thought, who are we going to make some jerseys for? And our jerseys, it has some moisture absorbent areas on the side and on the sleeve so you can dry it. And we made them some shorts. And it's just been fun to watch these guys. They're still in a virtual environment. So soon we'll see them back out of competition. But it's just been fun to watch these guys get geared up and ball out. So yeah, we announced that deal with Johnson C. Smith about a month and change ago. We've got a handful of other really exciting partnerships, both on the team side, on the branded side. But we've got a really good pipeline of product. That's what I'm most excited about. We got some stuff that will hit Q4 that's just, when we go to basketball tournaments, we get told two things, right? So you say 15-year-old kid comes off the court, little man, how was your game? He's like, oh man, we won, we lost. Cool. You worked up a good sweat, right? He's like, yeah, man, played hard. What do you do when you sweat? And they're always like wiping out, and then we show them the shorts. And either them or their parents will say one of two things. Number one, damn, why didn't I think of that? And two, have you been on Shark Tank? Which the answer is no, we haven't, but it's a good idea. And we go through this gaming stuff and we're like, my goodness, how has no one thought of this yet? It's seemingly pretty obvious ideas. If you're really thinking about what this gamer needs, we have the capability to do it. We have the partnerships to be able to make it. We think we've got the audience to push it out to. So it's been a lot of fun really getting into the space and figuring out what makes these gamers tick and what gets them excited. And it's just really very early. We're first, second inning still, so it's been fun.
I love it, man. A couple runners on base too, it sounds like. And I think it's just, it is one of those ideas where when you hear about it, you're like, well, duh. Like, as I said before, you're talking about getting in some other places. Like, you literally grabbed a chef's towels. Like, nobody, like, quarterbacks use that. Like, we see them use it constantly, right? So it's just this like one of those things where it just goes over everybody's head until you start talking about it. You're like, holy shit. Of course, this is a brilliant idea. Why didn't anybody think of that? Which I think is awesome. Yes, shout out to our friends over at Next Step, Joe, Gerald, Sabrina, so many incredible people, Sarah, so many incredible people over there doing some cool stuff. So I do have one last question. I'm sure you got to go because you're an extremely busy guy, and I do sincerely appreciate your time. One more time, Michael Luscher, CEO of POINT3. The business models, the way you're kind of describing them, right? With the basketball, it's like, hey, we're going after teams, we're going after coaches, we're going to try and sell and sell and sell. It seems like with the esports, while yes, there are a lot of esports teams and they're up and coming and there's going to be colleges and everything, how do those kind of connect where this one kind of seems, as you said, this is a team model. Like we're trying to own this space, grassroots. The esports model seems a little bit more of that one-to-one, which again, you guys are great at the hand-to-hand, but there doesn't seem to be as much of that team aspect of it. Am I missing something? Is this something that is obvious to you guys? Like, how are these things going to kind of collide and collaborate together?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Michael, and I think we're learning every day. Whereas in the team space for basketball, there's a way to leverage that and grow your DTC. We don't see as direct a connection, and candidly, I don't know that the market is all that mature when it comes to esports, right? Yeah. So you think about esports as a subset of gaming. Esports are professional athletes that play for Evil Geniuses or Ghost or insert name of all the teams that are so widely reported on, a lot of investment dollars going in and they're playing in these massive tournaments. Gaming is a much larger business, which covers everything from those esports athletes to my sales guy's 7-year-old son, who every time he comes in the office has got his Nintendo Switch and he's ripping on Fortnite for 4 hours at a time. That's a gamer. So our approach, we've done a few esports deals. There's some really meaningful, and these are some of the deals that are percolating right now, but influencers are incredibly popular all over the place. But in the gaming space, they carry a ton of weight. And thankfully, we have a very unique value proposition. And it's one that's relatively easy to communicate and easy to understand. And without, throwing shade to the other handful of companies that are out there doing gaming apparel, there's nothing that other than a brand that is probably, endeavoring to become the supreme of gaming, right? Scarcity, limited drops, streetwear looking styles and photography. There's a ton of white space in that. Like, I want to look right. I want to feel right, and I want to perform. So we look at a day in the life of our muse, and it is this 15 to 16-year-old kid. And so the analogy I always make is my wife gets up in the morning and she puts on her Lululemon or her Athleta or her athleisure, and that's her uniform for the day. And she may go take a yoga class. She may go for a walk with her friends. She may go to work. She may go to Trader Joe's, but that's her uniform. We are, and this is the piece I'm probably most excited about, but we see this modern athlete developing. And it's this kid who's always ready to play. And there's this blending of, I take this off for gym and I put this back on for school and I take this off. Like, the world is coming where you should be able to wear what you want day round. Wake up, put that right. The uniform for the kid is shorts and a t-shirt, maybe compression tights in the summer, joggers and a hoodie in the winter. And they're ripping that through school, maybe they're going to practice where they got to wear a uniform, but maybe they're going to the court and playing knockout or 21, going home, homework, time with the family, and then they're gaming. And so we want to be the uniform for this modern athlete. And then, and I get into this brand storytelling. We feel like we've got a real credible case to make the leap that so many performance brands have been unable to do, which is lifestyle. We are truly part of their lifestyle. And if we think about this muse, like what this kid wants, we've got it nailed. Like, we know how you live. We know what your life is like. We know your lifestyle. And that allows us to bridge the gap into, yes, we are here for performance, but we also have the styles and the chops in a performance apparel space and in a design space to give you what you want to wear all day long. And then it becomes a relatively simple idea of communicating that message, developing brand loyalists, and then we can see the scalable growth that you're talking about.
I love it, man. That is awesome. I'm excited to say I remember when. It's always fun about this show because I've had some incredible people on here, Michael, and I'm very, very grateful to add you to the list. So give us all the information. Where are we following you on social? Where are we following you specifically in case you're doing some fun stuff? The website, anything that you want, spit it out. I'll put everything in the show notes for everyone as well in case they miss something.
Yeah, so we our social handles are at POINT3 Hoops, and then our gaming is at POINT3 GG. The website is point3gear.com, which will take you to an ability to bifurcate between our gaming and our basketball lines. The site is still very much a basketball site with a gaming element to it, but stay tuned. There's more fun stuff coming there. And yeah, man, I think what I'd say to you and your listeners is we're learning. We know that we're new to this space. We think we've got a leg to stand on as endemic because we have done the work, and everyone in my company are gamers. Like, we're all hardcore about this stuff. So we love getting outreach from people that are native to this space that can help us tell stories, help us learn about what drives the taste and preferences of this consumer. So always excited to connect with folks and really excited to have a chance to be on the show and meet you. And again, like you said, shout out to the Next Step Group, which there are strategic partners that have come in, and we're doing a cap raise now, and they've come in and they were first money in the round, and they're helping us push move the needle on getting drive out on a whole bunch of other brands. So it's an exciting time. And like I said, it's been a treat to get on here and talk to you about it.
Appreciate it, man. You got some good people in your corner, Michael. So thank you one more time, Michael Luscher, the CEO of Point3. Make sure to go Point3 Gear, Point3 Hoops, Point3 GG. Check them out. They got some good stuff. Appreciate your time today, Michael.
Thanks, bud.